This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by Newegg. Whether you're buying a new computer, building a new computer, or upgrading an existing one, Newegg has all of the parts to make that possible. Whether you're looking for great deals on RAM, hard drives, SSDs, monitors, cases, all of that are available through Newegg, and they do daily deals. And one of those daily deals right now, if you're building a NAS drive or something like that, they've got a Western Digital 10 gig drive for $375, which is a crazy price for something like that. They've also got some high-speed RAM, 16 gig for $85. Plus, they've got a whole bunch of other stuff. And again, the deals change every day. Sometimes these little shell shocker deals will go quicker than that. So definitely keep checking back. And you can do all of that by going to piltchpoint.live/Newegg. 10 gig drive, huh? That's crazy. Anyway, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to go the other way. Let's talk small things, Avram.
Yes. So, if you've been listening to this to our show for a while, you know one of my hobbies, one of my obsessions, the last few year or so has been trying to build stuff with Raspberry Pi, so here I have one. It's Raspberry Pi 0W, but I wanted to talk a little bit about, I got the opportunity to interview Evan Upton, who is the founder of Raspberry Pi, worked with the team, invented the first one, and also is currently, he's the CEO of Raspberry Pi Limited, which actually develops the Pis, and which is owned by the Pi Foundation, which is the overarching brand that makes Raspberry Pi. Anyway, I had a chance to talk to him a couple weeks ago and got some really great information about where this has been and where it's going. So, one thing that's really interesting, did you know the first Raspberry Pi came out in 2012, 7 years ago, and originally the original plan was that the Raspberry Pi group, they only wanted to make 1,000 of them, and their only goal in developing the Raspberry Pi was to increase computer science applications to Cambridge University.
Wow.
That's it. They had been receiving like 650 applications a year, and then it dropped to like 200 something. And so Eben and his team decided, hey, if we get more hackable computers into the hands of young people, then we'll be able to increase the amount of applications at Cambridge.
Wow.
Because all this company is based in England. So anyway,
what an interesting origin story.
So that was their origin story, and then they found out, because there were just so many people who were interested in it, that they could no way make them just manufacture themselves. They kind of outsourced the manufacturing of it, and I guess the rest is history, sort of.
Yeah.
One thing that's really interesting to know also is when they were first designing it, they had no idea that this was going to become so popular with the maker community. So there have been almost 25 million Raspberry Pis sold as of now, and the making it one of the most popular computers of all time. So, I mean, depending on how you measure, I guess, a computer.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It's when they first started building it, they didn't realize that, hey, they thought kids are going to get a kick out of this. They didn't realize that people would be able to use them to create all kinds of Internet of Things projects, robots, all that kind of stuff. Um, but but Evan went to a maker fair in New York, and he saw all kinds of people doing crazy stuff, and then he realized like how important that was. And you see that one of the things that really makes Raspberry Pi such a cool thing to use is the set of 40 pins.
Yeah.
So you can see here, this one I had to solder them onto the Pi Zero, but regular Raspberry Pis come with them on, and you use these. These are GPIO pins, general purpose input output pins, and you can use them to control lights, to control motors, to control, to take input from sensors, to do all kinds of stuff that you can't do with your regular PC. So you take one of these, the Pi Zero, you could get it for $5, or the full Raspberry Pi that's much more powerful for $35 or so, and you can build something of really great, great power and performance. uh, you know Behind me in the corner, I have the RetroPie system that I built.
Mm-hmm.
They use a full Raspberry Pi, and that can play all kinds of arcade games. So obviously, this is a great thing to get into, but they had no idea it was going to be used by makers like that. Um, it's all they continue to target $35 as the maximum price for Raspberry Pi. And at one time, apparently, Upton was working on the Raspberry Pi 2. We're now up to the third. We're now on the third generation of Raspberry Pi, for those not keeping track. And he was working on the second gen, and he met Eric Schmidt from Google and showed it to him. And he said, "Here's this Raspberry Pi 2 I'm working on, and it's going to cost more money." And apparently Schmidt said, "You're an idiot. You have to make it. People want cheaper stuff." And he went back to went back home, and went back to the drawing board, and figured out a way to make the Raspberry 2 cost only $35.
Wow.
So it's, and they're very parsimonious with that $35. One of the things that I asked Upton when I had a chance was, how come there's no power switch? There's no power switch on any of these Raspberry Pis.
Mm-hmm.
You want to turn it on, you want to turn it on, plug in your micro USB. You want to turn it off, you should probably shut down the operating system, but then unplug the USB. He said that that's a feature that maybe 10% of people would use, and for 10% of people using it, that's not enough. And for a lot of people, when they're building their own stuff, they can make their own on-off button, because you can attach a button to any of the pins here, and then you can program it to do on-off through that. So,
fair enough.
So that's how a lot of people are building things with it. Speaking of building things with it, about half of the people who buy it now, the customers, are industrial. Their companies building the Pi into something else. So that and that is one reason why you'll notice, if you go to the raspberrypi.org site, they are still selling the Raspberry and manufacturing the Raspberry Pi 1 and 2, even though they're way out of date. And unless you have some really urgent need to use one as a drop-in replacement for one you had, I wouldn't recommend buying an old one. But they're still selling them, and actually not for any. I don't think for any cheaper either. But they don't like to end of life products. They said there's a lot of people who, really depend on stuff being available. So even when the next generation Raspberry Pi 4 comes out, you'll still be able to get your 3 and your 2 and your 1. And speaking about the 4, everyone is really looking forward to what the next generation of Raspberry Pi is. I certainly am. And so I have an article up on Tom's Hardware right now where we talk about all of the things that we know about the Raspberry Pi 4. Unfortunately, it seems like it's not going to be coming out this year, and Upton and his team are still making decisions about it. So I think he was very open with me about what their thinking is, but they haven't really finalized on anything. So he does believe that it will be, they have to do a die shrink. Right now, all Raspberry Pis have been 40 nanometer. They have to go down to maybe 28 nanometer or less, but higher than 7 nanometer, because apparently 7 nanometer they can't get uh, the type of voltage handling that they want, uh, inexpensively at 7 nanometer. Um, it will not. They are really determined to keep the price the same, and they're really determined to keep the size the same or smaller. They don't want it to get bigger. Um, and he's pretty happy with the mix of ports that the full Raspberry Pi has. But we did talk about what he thinks of USB Type C, which is something I'd like to see on the Raspberry Pi. Mm-hmm. And he's a little less bullish on it than I am. He said it would be good to have, possibly because it enables more power delivery, but he doesn't think that the Type C plug is as rugged as is as durable as micro USB, which is something I hadn't heard before.
That's an interesting thought.
That's something I had not heard before from anybody. In my experience, Type C has been pretty good, but he said the environments that people use these in, he thinks that Type C might not be durable enough, but he does like it for power delivery. So there's a possibility of Type C. The other thing is, for sure, what they're going for is more RAM, faster processor, and faster I/O, which are all significant issues that are lacking right now, right? The current top of the line Raspberry Pi, the 3B Plus, has only 1 gig of RAM. It's a quad core processor that operates at 1.4 gigahertz, and the entire bus is USB 2, so no USB 3. You can't use particularly fast peripherals. So, those are all things that, that they want. That they want. I think every person who is a fan of Raspberry Pi would want also. So, that's kind of what we're expecting.
That's reasonable
out of the next gen Pi. But if you want to get involved, enjoy the current gen Pi, which you shouldn't wait because the new one's not coming for at least a year, then I highly recommend. There are a lot of great online resources to teach you about this. You can, if you're in the United States and you live near a micro center, that is the best place to buy your Raspberry Pi. There are many great kits on Amazon and Newegg, but Micro Center is selling them almost like below cost. So, but you have to go into the store to do it. So, the Pi Zero W, the wireless version of this one I'm holding right here is $5. The full Pi 3B Plus I think is $30, and the somewhat mid-range 3A Plus I think is $20. So, really good deals on those. Obviously, you've got to power them with USB. You've got to find a way of attaching a keyboard and screen, or you could do what I do most of the time and remote control them using VNC. But they're a lot of fun. You could do a lot with them, and they're great to work on with your kids. My son and I are always working on projects with them, whether we're trying to make like a little traffic light where it changes, the lights change from red to green, or right now we're working on trying to create a universal controller for a bunch of his Lego power-up toys that all use Bluetooth LE, because you can send Bluetooth LE from this, and if you know what codes to send, then you can then control it from another device such as a Raspberry Pi. So our goal is we're going to take this, we're going to attach a joystick to it and some buttons, and we're going to use this as a controller to control like his Lego Boost robot and his Lego Batman car and other things. So the biggest downer, which is another thing he said that they haven't put on, is an analog to digital converter. You have to, if you want to convert analog to digital, you have to buy an add-on chip, and that can be a pain when you're doing things like using joysticks because those are analog, so you have to convert in some way. But I strongly encourage everybody to read. Tomorrow, I have a more detailed story, 10 things you didn't know about Raspberry Pi, and we already have up the story on the Pi 4. And at Tom's Hardware, we're committed. We're going to have a lot more Pi stories,
Cool.
not just about it, not just news, but like how to use it going up, because it's a lot of fun and it's a great challenge.
And, and one of the things that I think has made Raspberry Pi so successful is the fact that you can use it from so many different environments, right? Like you can even install Windows 10 IoT Core on there. So if you want to run entirely in a Microsoft environment, you can put IoT Core on there. You can program it directly in C or C++. You can there's all kinds of ways to interact with it and different ways to put it to use. So you don't have to wrap your head so much around it as you can make it fit into your environment. And I think that's been a huge selling point for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot. It's very, very flexible. You can get Windows 10 IoT Core, but just to clarify for our audience, that's not Windows 10.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get it. You don't get Windows and a start menu and get to move around. That's purely for running programs on it that you've created on another computer to do IoT stuff. Basically probably do a lot with these input-output pins, right? Generally on the official operating system, which is called Raspbian, you would probably use Python use Python language to do most of that. But there's other operating systems for it, and I'm still holding out the hope that someday Microsoft will release a version of Windows that would run a full Windows that would run on Raspberry Pi. I mean, I don't know if people would pay for the Windows, so maybe that would be a downer for them. But that they already have Windows on ARM, so I don't know how hard it would be for them to make it work on Raspberry Pi. And Upton says he would certainly welcome them doing it, even though they're big members of the open source community. They're definitely not opposed to Microsoft.
Well, Microsoft is officially the largest contributor to the open source community, so it would be weird for them to be opposed to it at this point.
Yeah.
But
there's some Linux geeks out there who have their feelings.
Indeed,
right?
Indeed they do.
About
perhaps when the whatever it ends up being branded, the Windows Lite that they're working on internally, that might be the version that finally is able to run on something like the Raspberry Pi. That would be interesting to see. But it's a cool platform. I've got a couple of them around here myself. I'm consistently impressed, and so it's good to see that they're still focusing on and have figured out who their core market is. And I can't wait to read the 10 things thing tomorrow.
Yeah. It's really cool. I was really excited to be able to talk to Upton because he's a real hero in this industry. He invented this thing, and he's still running it for the most part. So it's great. And their goal was not to just start a profitable business. Their goal was Raspberry Pi Foundation is a nonprofit. Their goal is to make something for the world, and originally it was for kids, but now it's for everyone.
For sure. And there have been so many interesting things that have been built care of the Raspberry Pi, so they've obviously done a good job with it. And so you said that the 10 things we'll be able to see tomorrow?
Yes, tomorrow morning.
Fantastic. Well, I can't wait for that, and I can't wait to see what you have for us next time.